Today we're going to decode the movie, The Lost Boys. Lost Boys gets its name from the Peter Pan story, and this is an evil version of The Lost Boys. Peter Pan and the Lost Boys is a story about the magic and imagination of childhood, whereas the Lost Boys movie is about children who have been abused and had their childhood tainted and stolen from them. Symbolically, The Lost Boys is about a rock and roll band cult. Vampirism symbolizes being addicted to pleasures of the flesh, such as sex and drugs. This theme can be seen in other vampire movies as well, such as Interview with the Vampire and Bram Stoker's Dracula. The blood represents that extreme physical pleasure and the willingness to do anything to get it, including hurting others. Vampirism can also represent extreme narcissism, using others to feed one's own ego due to low self-worth or lack of self-love. This vampirism goes deeper than emotional or physical. There is a spiritual and energetic aspect as well. Those who resonate on the vampire frequency have no spiritual energy of their own. They have no life force. This is why they are so pale. This is why they are called the undead. They must feed on others' energy in order to get high, and often that feeding is symbolic abuse. The vampire is both victim and victimizer. To become a vampire, one must be bitten, one must be tainted and abused. For those who do not find spiritual healing, they themselves will become the abuser, the vampire. The vampire is a metaphor for the abused becoming the abuser. Their lack of a mirror image signifies the lack of soul and the loss of humanity. It signifies becoming lost in illusion to the point that one does not truly exist. The vampire is the archetype for the person that has become a void, a black hole, trying to suck in excess energy in order to feel more powerful than others. They seem powerful, but in reality, they are slaves. The vampire is the opposite of a Buddha, for a Buddha is truly liberated and a source of light, spreading good energy and awakening wherever one may go. What a Buddha gives, a vampire takes. The vampire spreads illusion and confusion, causing others to become lost and ensnared by karmic traps. The Buddha is free and detached, and the vampire is enslaved to desire. This is one of the meanings of the tarot card, the Devil, which displays a couple chained to the devil who represents humanity's unbalanced animal nature. The film opens at a carnival, which here represents chaos and illusions. The root of carn in carnival means flesh, and vampires are obsessed with pleasures of the flesh. Later, we see the picture of the young child Laddie on the back of a milk carton. The brand is carnation milk. Carnation means a flower, but it also means to be of the flesh. We hear a cover of the Doors song, People Are Strange, with lyrics written by Jim Morrison. In the Lost Boys cave, we see a large poster featuring Jim Morrison as well. Jim Morrison was the quintessential rock and roll star, and one who had a tragic demise. He is the one who made black leather pants popular, as well as being a deeply thoughtful poet and artist. According to his biography, sadly, he was likely a sexually abused child and tormented soul, who probably used sex and drugs in order to anesthetize his own suffering. This theme of abuse, sex, drugs, glamour, and tragedy make him a fitting idol for the Lost Boys. The main character, Michael, bears a striking resemblance to Jim. They are a rock and roll cult, and one of the primary ways that cults try to gain members is by using sex as a lure. This is exactly how the character Star is used. Max used Star to bring Michael into the cult in order to also have access to the mother, Lucy. As Star is not fully a vampire yet, she still has a conscience and sense of empathy, thus regrets what she is being forced to do. Unfortunately, she lacks the self-love and energy to free herself from her abusers, so she asks for help. Max is the head vampire, aka head abuser. He is successful because he has learned to maintain an image of complete normalcy in order to hide all of the child abuse he commits. He is the one who has created the Lost Boys via abuse, and doubtless he was also abused as a child. Strangely, actors Corey Haim and Corey Feldman both seem to have suffered from these kinds of issues.
What were the most painful movies to get through? Lost Boys was definitely the most painful. Yeah, it was probably very parallel with what I was going through in my life at the time, and I think that probably has a lot to do with it.
A documentary that goes deeper into this subject is 2014's An Open Secret. Max says at one point that if you invite a vampire into your home, you render yourself powerless. This is an important point. They cannot violate one's sovereign free will. Their way is via seduction. The vampire is that abuser or narcissist that you willingly allow to come into your home, into your energy field, into your temple, and into your spiritual consciousness. They do their harm with one's consent by seducing one into a false sense of love by way of lies and illusion. One must be very careful who they allow into their life. One must use proper discernment and be able to look beyond the obvious and superficial. The goal is not to judge, but to use careful and realistic discernment. Don't ignore the cautionary signals. They choose their victims carefully. They get the biggest pleasure from turning the pure and innocent, the trusting and naive. And this is why Max particularly likes Lucy. Their ability to fly at great heights represents the great high they get from their pleasures. Just like a drug addict must continually increase the dose to get the same effect, the intensity or perverseness of what the vampires do must also be increased, because they are addicted to the adrenaline rush they get from their blood, aka sex, drugs, or violence. The Frog Brothers are young shamans in training who are armed with knowledge of the archetypes of modern mythology, comic books. They are named Edgar and Allan because, like Edgar Allan Poe, they are not scared of facing the darkness. Here, the frog is a symbol of nature, and shamans get their powers from nature. They serve a higher power and a higher purpose. They say they fight for truth, justice, and the American way. This was the catchphrase of Superman in the 1980s, and Superman represents light. Interestingly, we can see a pentagram on one of the Superman comic books. A pentagram is a mystical symbol of protection and magic. The vampires symbolize spiritual darkness and the profane. Darkness is illusions and lies, and light represents the truth. To the vampires, sunlight, aka truth, is deadly, as is the holy water of the church, a symbol of sacred purity. The vampire's darkness has a glamour to it, a false illusion of beauty that has the most intense ugliness behind it, expressed by their monstrous faces. The distorted and unnatural faces display an evil so powerful that it is like another foreign being, like they are possessed by a demonic entity. This is reminiscent of the Sith, such as Senator Palpatine's transformation into the Emperor in the Star Wars series. When their dark appetites have been fed, the vampires seem extra powerful, confident, beautiful, charming, and sexy. When they are starved of their pleasures and psychic energy, the true ugliness of their souls begins to emerge. Grandpa is the master shaman who is aware of everything, even though he seems oblivious and crazy. His home is surrounded by sacred guardian symbols of ancient knowledge and spirituality. His ways are strange and seem contrary. He is mysterious and magical, appearing out of nowhere when he shows up. His home is a sacred space with clear boundaries and rules. Conversely, the vampires seek to violate sacred boundaries via deception. As Grandpa is the master shaman, it is he who ultimately ends the reign of the vampires and brings healing and light back to the realm of humanity. This movie is showing the hedonistic lifestyle of sex, drugs, rock and roll as negative or evil. Evil can be seen as that which ultimately causes there to be less life, something that is drawing us into non-existence. They are a rock band, and Max is like the powerful CEO of the record company. Metaphorically, he's the devil that they have sold their souls to for fame, money, and pleasure. I hope you enjoyed that. If you did like it, please like, comment, share, and subscribe. Thank you for watching, and remember, elevate consciousness constantly.